So the last year and a half has been about doing it in a way that was always protecting my energy. I wasn't willing to sacrifice that to achieve the physique that I wanted. However, that slow, methodical approach got me into a position where all of a sudden people are like, you're looking really good now.
It's in mainstream media in the last 10 to 20 years, it's found to them.
Yeah.
Like, what, this guy's taking my calories up. But yeah, for most people, let's say if you get someone here and they are they're really overweight and they need to drop weight quickly, you try and get your weight session, you commit to that, putting them in a small deficit generally, and getting them to do more NEAT or walking like that, walk the dog further, stuff that doesn't really drain their nervous system or their body too much at this stage.
That's how we work with our clients. I'm realistic to them. I'll tell them, I want to be 6-pack abs. And they'll be like, well, you're 30% body fat right now, so I think we just need to get to 20% maybe.
And then we'll talk again.
It's Kev, how do you get rid of belly fat?
Why have you given me the two best questions?
Hey guys, welcome to another podcast episode with me, Kev, and him, Kev.
Easy to remember, I can't forget our names.
Yeah, the Kev and Kevs. So we've got loads of things that we're going to be talking about today, but specifically we're going to actually start this episode with how to get shredded over summer, because we're in summer season now. It's too late to try and get there for that period, but during the period, can you actually lose the body fat? Can you actually bring it down to actually get in decent shape over summer? So Kev, when we're talking about this, the first thing that I would like to go into is basically having a plan. Okay. Yeah. So when we're talking about actually going about things, it is easy for me and you to state, right, in the next 4 weeks, this is how you lose something very quickly.
Yeah.
But the problem that comes with that is your short-term success can often lead to the long-term struggle. So if we're looking at things, it's better to try and create a periodized timeline of what we want to achieve in the time frame that we've got to do it.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. So instead of just thinking of things as, right, over the next 4 weeks, this is what I'm going to do, it's think, okay, well, actually, how long am I actually trying to do this for? So it could be, let's say, over the course of the whole summer period. Yep. September is the end date. We've gave ourselves, let's say from now it's June, let's just say it's 90 days that we've gave ourselves as a full plan of action. We might not lead the next 4 weeks the same way as what we would if we just said, right, I need to lose as much as I can over the next 4 weeks, because that short-term success, yes, it's faster, but is it the fastest route to the end date? And what I mean, because what could it do is it could leave with attributes and problems that you could actually get now while still losing body fat. For example, the benefits of less strict in terms of your calories and actually just starting to make slight adjustments to it. Training so that you're actually getting purpose in the gym. And what I mean by that is actually you're able to benefit from the effects of, let's say, train at a high capacity because you didn't sacrifice all those calories.
It's allowing yourself to train with an intensity
and purpose, and giving yourself that platform to try and build the training up. So I think I'm talking about, let's say, someone here who's saying, right, I need to get my act in gear and I want to try and lose body fat. They might not be they might just be getting into training. So what they're going to miss out on by sacrificing all those calories straight away and starting training is they're never actually going to be able to build up to a decent capacity in the gym. Going from 20 kilo dumbbells up to 30 or 40 kilo dumbbells.
They're not going to build their engine.
Yeah.
Both in terms of what they can lift, perform in the gym, as well as what's going on inside. The calories that their body can tolerate to allow them to perform. But that touches on another interesting point. Over the years, if you've been a client here at Model Health, you'd heard me and Kev talk about the happy place, which is really important. And that's a place where you kind of know almost your maintenance level calories, Kev, somewhere that you can always return to after any form of specific transformation. And I don't always mean a cut. It could be you're trying to add some lean mass as well, or maybe you're training purposely for a sport. But ultimately, if you don't have that balance, that place where you can sustain easily, then you're always setting yourself up for failure. And I think that touches on your point there when you get a client who's like, right, they haven't got the foundation, they haven't got the bedrock, but they want to drop weight quickly because really, they haven't given themselves enough time. They should have started this 10 weeks ago, and they didn't. And now they've got 4 or 5 weeks to get there. That's the problem, because they're trying to go from here to here too quick.
Yeah. So if you think of it like the first 4 weeks, like you've just mentioned, if we're trying to cut that middle part out, the middle ground, the foundation building first, what you'll find is, I might lose, I lost 10 pounds in the first 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I've only lost 2 in this next things, and it was a lot harder to try and achieve that. Yeah. And then by the last 4 weeks of the actual plan, it was just non-existent in what they were actually getting out of it, because it was such a struggle from that point onwards, because they didn't actually give themselves the platform to drop. Yeah,
and it's a struggle physically for them, it's a struggle mentally, and it's a struggle internally for the body. Yeah. Because physically, say if they're on 1,000 calories, they're going to see really good short-term results. But ultimately, what's happening inside, the body is adapting to those calories. And let's face it, it's the most intelligent computer, if you like, on the planet, isn't it? It adapts to everything you do. So as you're trying to drop your calories and your output's going up, the body's thinking, wait a minute, I don't like this. I don't want to change. So eventually, it down-regulates things, and things start to slow down and become harder. Now, the problem you've got there is, if you've never had that phase, like you said, of building your capacity, building your engine, you've got nowhere to go back to. So that's a big issue for a lot, because then they're at 1,000 calories already, say really, really low. How do they get back up to the happy place without seeing a big like rebound effect? And that's a big issue. So saying that, I think, secondly though, depending on where you're at, if it's someone like you, and you said to me, Kev, I've got 4 or 5 weeks, you could have an intense phase because you've already got that background behind you. But most, particularly newbies, do not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in right this minute that we're in now, I'm in quite an aggressive format of dieting, but it's been built on the foundations of a really good calorie amounts that I've been doing for a considerable amount of time, losing body fat in a slow but methodical way. Mm-hmm. And I'm ready to push a button now. You know, me and my partner Gemma, who's also a trainer here, we're at the same time, we're leading up towards like really focused work. Obviously, from our perspective, I was in a bad place in 2021, not just mentally and emotionally, it was more physically as well. And what I mean by that is I wasn't leading a role model's sort of lifestyle. And what I mean by that is, like, I was out of shape for me. Now, if you look at the photos, for example, you might go, well, that's not too bad. But for me, it was. I've always been in really good shape. I've always, been very close to having 6-pack abs whenever I wanted to, but it's not about being year-round 6-pack abs, but being close to it. But in that particular point, after, multiple things going on, business, sleep deprivation, all them things, what happened was I just got myself completely out of sync with where I normally would be at, and I wasn't living the lifestyle that I feel I should be, which is congruent to being a role model. I actually lost confidence with it as well. So the last year and a half has been about doing it in a way that was always protecting my energy. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice that to achieve the physique that I wanted. However, that slow, methodical approach got me into a position where all of a sudden people are like, you're looking really good now. Mm. And you're really, you're almost like your aura is like really a lot better. And I know it was because everything was based around protecting my energy. Yeah. It was a slow, methodical way of doing it that basically allowed me to, feel good in the gym when I was training, lift the weights that, we tend to know that we're pushing ourselves, because when we're training together, we tend to pretty much on all things
match, don't we?
We're form over everything. That's the difference with us. We like to train with form, purpose and intent, but stick to the principles of what it is. So for example, if we've got specific tempos that are going in, we don't mess with that. Nope. If it's a 6 in 1 count, so it's a 6-second negative, 1 second up, or if there's pauses there, 3-second pauses, for example, we stick to that religiously. Yep. Now, where that might not look as good when you're going in with a big hardcore guy in the gym and we can't lift the weights they do, our training intent is still just as good, if not far better. Yeah. We're not changing our body shape and contouring ourselves just to be able to lift that movement up. It's good. But that's where I think me and you have been really good in, like, avoiding long-term injuries or anything like that. I've always been that person, because I think in 30, 40, 50 years...
longevity.
Longevity needs to be a fountain of youth. And also, I think from where we learned early in the days, the Charles Poliquin, Owen Lacey's, Mark Rope, and people like that we've always listened to and obviously got a lot from, because the people that they were coaching, we respected where they were at as clients and with their results they were getting. It was always the principal foundations for me. I'm glad I learned that so early on. But now, obviously, going back to the point of shredding for summer, or over summer, I'm in a really big aggressive format. I would say I'm at least 40% deficit to what my maintenance calories is, which was what we're trying to get at. And that is the importance of what knowing your maintenance calories is. So when clients do come to me and let's say they're on a low calorie amount, when they come to me and they're like, over a period of time, they've lost a certain amount of weight and they think, I need a bit of an adventure now where I'm getting maybe accountability with someone because I've got myself to a certain point and want to go to the next level. I want to go to the next step and I'm not too sure where I should be going now, which is where a lot of our clients come from. So they come in, I'll be like, right, where you're at currently. And some of them they've been calorie counting for a while and things like that. And it's like, all right, well, I'm down to like 1400 and I'll be like, right, okay, so we're going to reverse diet you first. And or with most clients that come in, I do go on a process of going towards maintenance before I do anything else. And a lot of them are a bit like, oh, this is some magic kind of mumbo jumbo thing. And it's like, no, I just want a good starting point for you.
But also for a lot of them, because of, I would say, mainstream media over the last 10 to 20 years, it's foreign to them. They're like, what, this guy's taking my calories up. I'm here to lose weight.
But also,
what's this guy doing? Does he know what he's doing?
Yeah. But also, it's true. If you want to lose weight, you need a calorie deficit. You kind of get away from that. So it is the obvious choice.
It's a very complicated subject, though.
Yeah,
and it's very individual to someone's starting point.
But what it is you're right in saying it. But even if I could literally just bring them in and just say, right, we're going to keep on this, they will lose weight because they're in deficit. Yeah. But what the weight's made up of is a different story.
Yeah.
But going up to maintenance and finding out what that is, there is a long-term reason for it. And that is because I want them to understand what that actually is and why they should be there.
And how it feels.
Because let's say, I'm just for argument's sake, you're my client and we'll bring you up. You've never been on a maintenance calories where you've actually methodically tried to be there for a period of time. Why even be at maintenance calories in the first place? Well, maintenance calories is a great place. Firstly, you can't put body fat on in that pace. It's maintenance, right? Maintenance, maintaining your levels of where you are.
Yep.
Now that can change over time. So if you've come off the back of losing 15 kilos, and you initially wanted 3,000 calories and we lost you over time, and then people say, all right, go back to maintenance, that doesn't necessarily mean 3,000 calories is right for you this time. Because when we're methodically taking people back up on a reverse diet, because they've lost 15 kilos in weight, that's going to be different to their thing. So
when maintenance output's different.
So what maintenance calories really means is maintaining for where you currently are in your current life.
Along with activity levels.
Along with the activity levels, because that's what changes it.
Yeah, a massive thing I found since lockdown was people would be out, they'd be working at home, but they had that flexibility to walk the dog 3 times a day for an hour.
Yeah. Or on the other hand, they were in the house and they were able to eat whenever they wanted, and basically they were stuck in the house.
Exactly.
Whereas at work, they actually moved a lot more.
Or like us, so I was going to say, we had a really physical job, 15, 20,000 steps at least 3-4 days of the week, and then we went to that, and we were like, wow. Right, well, my output's gone down, but someone's has gone up. And I think that's a key thing for people to understand it and make adjustments to. I mean, reverse dieting is it's quite a controversial subject over the years, isn't it? Because there isn't actually any hardcore evidence to suggest that, yes, it's a winning formula. What we're speaking of, I would say, is our experience of working with clients over the past 15 years. We find that the term reverse dieting most definitely has a place, but it has to be done correctly, which is pretty much what you're getting into, isn't it? Reverse dieting.
Well, is it healthy? And I don't just mean in what the body is internally, but is it a healthy even mindset? Is it a healthy mindset to have where 52 weeks of a year, you're always thinking about being in a deficit, right? It's not, because you're missing out on so many benefits. I think if we start labeling the benefits now in this part of what maintenance calories can actually do. Firstly, it gives you the maximum flexibility in your diet without putting on body fat or weight. It's able to be at the most flexible output. It means that you're putting the maximum amount of energy, calorie energy, into your diet as well, right? So it means that in the gym, you can get the maximal gains.
Output.
Gains in terms of muscle mass. The hormonal milieu is going to be at its best as well. You know, again, a subject that you can't just say, oh, well, it'll be max, because that's not necessarily true based upon sleep, stress, all these other things as well. But you've got to look at it from, you're the maximum in the gym, you can perform at your best. So people are missing out on performance when they're always thinking about deficits, when they're always thinking about that point. They also then never understand how to come out of a calorie deficit. So, and actually give themselves a break, because the mental aspect of it is, no, if I do that, then I'm going to put weight on.
Yeah.
If I come out of my 1200 calorie deficit, I'm going to put weight on. And the only time that they physically do try and come out of it is when they go on holiday and be all inclusive and things like that. And when they're not really thinking about it, or when they're not training at all. Yeah. Because the reality is, if you're always in a deficit, always thinking of losing, always thinking of training as much as you can for as little as possible, that's a tough gig. Yeah. Isn't it?
It's tough on your mindset for sure.
It wears out. And what it is, the intent and purpose in what you're doing, when you're always in that massive deficit, you don't realize it, but you can't perform. But also, you naturally drop your step count, your activity levels throughout the day. You don't even realize it. Of course you
mentally and physically, you're getting more drained. And when you're so low on calories, other things happen that you don't even realize that are going on. All of those muscle building hormones, you know, thyroid gland, all of that stuff, testosterone, they deplete. And you don't even realize it. And then you're looking at the guy next to you, you think, why is he lifting twice as much as me now? And I used to outlift him, no problem. But it's because you don't realize the environment that your body's in now. And so for me, whenever I'm in any form of transformation, the first thing, or when I'm taking a client through, is I always explain to them, look, this is quite extreme what you're about to do, you know. Like, if you're going to embark on this journey, you've got to be ready for it. And you have to understand this is not how you live your life and walk around 52 weeks of the year. It's an impossibility. You're doing something extreme, whether you're trying to get in shape for a holiday or a photo shoot or a bodybuilding competition, whatever it is, you're doing it for a very short-term phase. But you've got to be ready mentally and physically, and well, with our guidance as to how to come out of that. So what would you do then? Let's touch on that. So if you have a summer transformation, whatever, and someone's training for a bodybuilding comp or holiday, and their calories are tapered right down, what's the next step? And do you explain this at the start? Do you go through the process and say, right, these are the phases, but at the end, this is my thoughts? Yeah.
So obviously, when I start with the client, I want to explain to them that there are different levels of a transformation. Like everything that you're doing from day one, from today up until 6 months' time, is part of your transformation. You going on holiday is part of your transformation. You going on an all-inclusive holiday is part of your transformation. You having an event, let's say you've got a wedding that you're going to, you're going to have a hen week at some point. Are you going to be in a deficit? Are you going to try and be in a deficit during that time? No, we're going to lead up to it, and that's going to be a point where there's going to be, you know, we're not going to win that week, are we? Right? And we need to understand that. So what I mean by that is there are different intensities of your transformation. We've got a surplus in calories potentially if we're trying to build muscle, maintenance calories to get the maximum effect of muscle while not putting on body fat. Because if you're in a surplus, you're going to be putting on in all areas. That means maximum muscle potential, but also there's going to be a fat gain to respect. It's a surplus. It cannot not be done. So that's where if you're doing long-term muscle gain, where you're specifically trying to build your capacity, because you need to keep consistently lifting progressively more. Progressive overload doesn't just mean more weight and more weight. It can also be slower reps and tempos. It can be shorter recovery times. It can be changing the actual rep schemes to make sure that we're consistently increasing the stimulus of the muscle. You know, both the satellite signaling, myofibrillar and sarcoplasmic aspect of it. So we're, you know, all the incrementally 100 calories every single week that you could increase over a 3 to 6 month period. I've done it with many clients who want to see that gain. It's not about just throwing as many calories into it and doing a dirty bulk, as it's called. It's, you know, that's an old school mentality.
You can't measure the variables then, can you?
And also we're gym pop, right? So when it comes to bodybuilding, when it comes to, you know, other things like that aspect of it, we don't work in that realm. It's something that we prefer to work with Gen Pop clients who are trying to change from where they're currently at and where lifestyle modifications to enhance their overall goal long term. But then when it comes to maintenance, you can get a lot of muscle building with that, because you're giving it everything it needs without the fat gain. Might be slower slightly, but at the same time, and also that maintenance calories will change because you're building your capacity. The next thing is being in a calorie deficit while building muscle. You can't do that. You know, the science shows it. So you can be in a deficit, and quite an aggressive deficit as well, and still be able to put on muscle. It depends on the training capacity, where the starting point is, their muscle memory and things like that, because they might have not been training for a long period of time.
In my head immediately there, that point's a great point. I have 3 variables that spring to mind there. So it's what you said. What's their level? Secondly, protein intake. Thirdly, how good is the program design? How well are they applying themselves to that program design?
And sleep as well.
And sleep
for me is the foundation bedrock. I mean, I've gone through it myself in terms of when it's been at its worst and when it's been at its best. And I know, hand on heart, I can tell anyone, if you want to power pack anything, you need to get that in gear as much as you can, right? I know it's not as it's easier said than done, but I'm going to be totally honest with you. Like, I still don't get the best sleep in the world. I've got 3 kids under 6 and under. I still get broken sleep consistently, but the things that I do around it to make sure that I maximize what I've got in my potential and my disposal is that's the focus. It should always be on maximizing the overall, the best output that you can potentially give yourself. If you've got kids who are breaking your sleep up, I get it, but there's still ways to maximize it to make it as good as possible. So sleep, I think, is a big one. Now, going back to saying when a client starts with the I want to make sure that they understand that first. Have they done it before? Have they worked out what their maintenance calories? Are they currently in that phase? Have they ever, if they have never done it before, and they've got a mentality of I need to lose weight, and they've never understood that, I want to keep them. I want to take them there first. So when they ask me what should I cut my calories to, whether I'm counting calories or not, but let's just go from that aspect of thinking calories. I'll say be where you are currently. And see what happens. So every 2 weeks we tend to be measuring our clients, taking their body fat readings and stuff like that. And the first thing they do, it shocks them a little. They're like, oh, well, shouldn't I cut my calories? I'll be like, well, no, we're about to start training properly. There's the first thing, right? I want you to I want you to do a few little things in terms of making sure that we're analysing what we're doing, because we don't know what their calorie amount should be based upon 24 hours a day, 7 days of a week, and what their output's like. They're adding that training in. Like, we need to see what actually happens from that. So just by analysing the calories they're currently doing and then implementing the bedrock of what we're about to do in the foundation principles of training and stuff, what actually happens from that? If they're losing body fat and it's quite, all of a sudden they've lost thingy, I might actually take their calories up, because they've lost a drop rate, and it almost shocks them, and they're like, hey, I don't understand why you'd be doing this. And it's not because there's some magic thing about eat more, burn more. That's not the case. What it is finding a platform for them to start from to give the best output long term in the win, because I'm not here to win the next 4 weeks. I'm here to win the next 3 months or the next 6 months. So I'm trying to give the best platform to start from. I need the people to understand this, because I don't want people to go down a route of saying, oh, well, you know, Kev uses this strategy and he takes me up my calories because it gives me the maximum rev of the engine in terms of my metabolism is stoked and on fire and stuff. Yes, the more you eat, the more your metabolism is going to burn because you put more fuel in the tank. But it's not really for that. It's to get the best output of everything and the starting point foundation. So then when we're going down in terms of a cut, I've got a level of like, right, there's maintenance. That's where we found it out. It's 2,500 calories, for example. Okay. And then what that allows me to do, right, is go, right, okay, 2,500 calories, multiply by 7, that's 17,500 calories, okay? So there's the 7 days. There's a weekly calorie amount that keeps them in a maintenance calories, and that's the sweet point. I now can plan a 20% calorie reduction, a 30% calorie reduction, a 40%, or a 50%.
Timeline.
So I can create a timeline of, right, we're going to do this for a period. We found that. I want to take it down by 20%. or 25%, for example. We're going to drop to 25% of your 75% of your normal calorie intake, and we're going to get on that format, and we're going to use that for a period of time, and just to see how it happens. Because then what I can do is, let's say, for example, it goes from 17,500 calories down to 14,000 calories, as an example.
Yep.
What we're doing then is I then create a platform for them to, so it does, let's say it works out at 2,000 calories a day, but they don't have to do 2,000 calories a day. They can change each day to accommodate it. Which is something I quite like to do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of.
I love that because it allows me to account for days and events where I'm up and I'm going to have more calories now, and then other days where I'm busy and I could easily keep my calories low.
And I think also it provides physical and mental stimulation.
Yeah, I do.
Knowing that I'm not always on 2,000 calories. It's like, right, today I'm on 1,800, but tomorrow I'm lifting weights, I'm going to have 500 of that. I'm a big fan of trying to load the calories dependent on that person's activity for the week. Do you
try and let the client decide that, though? Because what I've found is I've got clients who are anal as hell and they just love being on a structure. Every day is the same. If they're happy with that, I'm more than happy.
Yes, absolutely. But I'll always speak to the person and say, look, what goes on in your life? Oh, well, it's a bit all over the place at times. So I need to understand how flexible they need to be. And that's where I think wave loading comes in great, because you can... So that for the people that don't understand, wave loading is where, as Kev says, you may have a set amount of calories for the week, but it doesn't mean you need to eat the same amount of calories each day. You can match calories depending on activity levels, what you're doing that day, or freedom to give you a bit of a more flexible life. So some days you eat 2,000, some days you eat 1,500, maybe a Saturday you have 3,000, whatever suits your week. And that allows clients to easily switch days around, doesn't it? So if they're working away and I'm asking them to eat 1,500 calories because it's more of an aggressive day, but they're like, well, Kevin, with a business event, that's not going to happen. All right, no problem. You can switch your days around. But I find that also really stimulates the body.
Yeah.
I often see the best results with clients with that.
Yeah. I think that's why, like, people, this sustainable approach isn't something that I want my clients to think is the holy grail. Yeah. And I need clients to understand that. Let's put it this way, right? When we're working on body composition, rather than the weight loss, right? Body composition is all the associated water within the fat, the lean tissue and everything like that. When you drop into 500 calorie day, for example, I'm just making it up here, but 500 calories, that's going to stimulate a lot of water depletion because you haven't got the glycogen in the water.
Glycogen in the muscle. Stores are gone.
So the glycogen stores have dropped in that way. However, if you then have a 2,000 calorie day, it helps regenerate them stores. So the associated water and glycogen and the general weight day to day can change in that regard. But there is nothing more, I think, for a client who's wanting to lose weight overall and doesn't understand the long-term process, it can be very stimulating and motivating to see the weight scales dropping pretty well. So dropping in an aggressive format is something that I actually utilize within my plans if I think they're at the right stage, because I think it's a good way, and clients are very highly motivated at this point. And as you've just pointed out, which is why I said it, it's that change in stimulus, that shift in gears, giving people a new stimulation that gets them to thrive and actually go, do you know what it is? I'm pushing it and I'm seeing results. It's like I just feel leaner and everything like that. But this is the importance of like shifting gears, because by doing that calorie maintenance, understanding it first and getting them to realize that actually they can be in this position, they can eat more calories and not be putting on body fat, it means that they can get there longer term. Because when things have been exhausted to the point and mindset wise and everything's just gone on that person a little bit, they've just been exhausting the tank for a period of time where you can just tell the clients like, they're not dipping in as effectively as what they could be. They're losing that momentum for things. Things aren't shifting in the way, and it just basically they're at that point where it's like, something needs to re-stimulate, taking them upwards. They haven't got that mental block as badly later down the line because they've been there before and realised the importance of it and the benefits that can still come with it. So what happens when they've done a big aggressive, they tend to not be able to push in the gym. I know, as I'm in the middle of it right now, and remember last week in our training session, I just couldn't lift on the chest the way that you were. But I understand why. And what will happen is there'll be a point where I know that there'll be a lot of movements. It only happened in that session. The other sessions were fine. There'll be a point where I'm limiting my benefits of what I'm able to do. And I might say, do you know what it is, Kev? Next couple of weeks, I'm going to come out of that and I'm going to add 30% of my calories. I'm still in a deficit, Do you know what I mean? But I'm still going to be in a deficit, but I'm going to have more energy in the tank, in which case I can feel them in other benefits again. So I don't deplete so much that I lose all of that. Yeah. Because that's the key.
I think the other important thing to note there is about understanding why you need to be at that place. Is when you come to the end of any transformation, what people don't realize is they may look the best physically when they have a photograph taken, but internally they're in bits. You probably couldn't be more unhealthy actually inside for most people if you're doing a combo, you've trained for a photo shoot, or, you're really shredded for a holiday. And then it's about, right, so Kev, if you get to that point, how do you bring that person out of it? So you have to gradually help them understand, right, remember 3 months ago when you were at maintenance calories, or we actually built your calories up, the importance of that and how you felt, we're going to try and get you back there gradually. Yeah. Yeah. So how do you go about that?
So again, it's just, this is the thing. We've said, let's say 3,000 calories over that period of time. They're eventually down to let's say 1,500 calories, right? They've halved it. They're literally in a 50% deficit in that regard. And it's like, right, okay, we've lost the majority of where we want to be. We're in great condition in terms of aesthetically. We've got ourselves down, lost 20 kilos of body fat. Right. We're going to come out of it now. We're going to get you back to sort of what we call a normal working environment. Yeah. Okay. So it wouldn't be a case of going back to 3,000 calories.
No, because not
necessarily that's going to be maintenance anymore. It could be a surplus.
It might be 2.5.
Yeah. So what it would be is it'll be like, right, okay, we'll take it up by a couple hundred calories. Or
why would you not jump back to 2.5 straight away? If if you work out their new maintenance calories, say they're at 1,500, and right, maintenance now for them is 2.5.
How do I know the 2.5 though?
Well, there's calculators out there and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
That's an estimated
guess.
But it's exactly it. It's an estimate. So what it is what we're doing is we're just taking it up. Now, we could go a bit higher than that, because we know I could say, right, go back to 2,000, because 2,000 is easily going to be within that. It just depends on the client itself. They might have this mental issue still where it's like, if I'm increasing my calories, I'm going to worry because I'm going to take it up. So I might go a little bit slower with the client. Yeah. As long as I'm measuring and keeping them their head in the game on it, there's no issue at all, because we're checking. I'm showing them it's like, no, everything's fine. Next measurement, yep, it's still going up. We can take it
basically,
up. So it's the trust. Basically,
you're coaxing the response out of their body and their mindset.
Yeah.
So during that gradually increasing calories,
and during that time explaining the benefits of what that increase is going to start doing. So you're going to feel better in the gym. Yeah. You might start sleeping a little bit better, because depleting yourself that much can hinder that kind of thing. And then so by telling them what benefits they're going to receive, and actually them feeling that benefit, all of a sudden the trust in what I'm telling them to do gets up there. And the goal is we're trying to hold as much of that body fat off as possible while getting back to what we call the happy place, the maintenance calories in that way.
That's how you would reverse diet someone out in transformation between 50 and 150 calories per week. It might
be quicker, as I say.
It's all dependent on the client, isn't it? That's what the standard research suggests.
Yeah, I mean, a male who's been from 3,000 down to 1,500
can take more.
2,000 calories. I'll jump them up in the next week, no problem at all. Yeah. A female who's maybe I got them up to 2.2 maintenance calories, and then we took the dive into the deficit. They ended up on 1,400 by the end point. I might take them up by a couple of hundred each time.
Well, the point is, it's assessed.
It's just assessed, yeah. It's just one of them would come in, because the better we take them out of it with the understanding and get them to go, the more harmonious it is, the process, and they don't lose sight of what the end goal was to keep the body fat loss at the end, to keep the weight loss, because yourself, people who go all in and then go all out,
it's often why you can't put it back on, because I suppose that's what I was trying to get at before. You're at 1,500 calories, you add 1,000 straight away. For some, that's too much for the body, too quick. Even good calories is too much too soon sometimes, and the rebound effect can be huge. So that's why it's always important. It's similar to bulking. I always use a parameter of roughly, I tend to work within 300 calories either way, whether it's dropping by 300 or increasing by 300, and regularly assessing, because then it's easy to account for and assess. Whereas if I jump by 1,000 or I drop by 1,000, sometimes it's like, well, did I even need to do that? What worked? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Could I have got the same result, but this person felt so much better by just reducing by 300 or increasing by 300?
Yeah, I mean, every client's different. It's always a case by case, isn't it? In looking at it. But as I say, because we're a body composition and not weight loss specifically, you know, we're looking at things in like how to keep the frame that they've looked to attain. Yeah. You know, building that muscle in there. I mean, I'm sure Craig in the background when we actually upload this onto the different social platforms and stuff, but at this point I'd like to talk about maybe a client or two that is a great example of this kind of thing that we're talking about. First one, so you can put it like on the side somewhere
so
in this video.
The viewers can see.
Basically, and just so we're talking about it. So I'll talk about Brooke first. She came to me for a wedding. She was 15 weeks out at the start of the year, going up to her wedding date, and she's a lean, petite female already, and it was one of them where when she come to me, she was like, I want to be in the best shape possible, and in her head she'll have been like, I want to lose the body fat. But she was a petite person coming into this, so it wasn't like there was a lot to lose. What might when we sat down and had the consultation in that way, I was like, right, I want to put a frame on you. And again, all of a sudden the shift in perspective straight away from her side, you could see is in like build, bigger. It doesn't sound right, especially for a female, right? I'm sure the photos already suggest differently in that regard. And what the purpose was when I sat down with Brooke, I said, look, we're not going for weight loss at all. She was, I think it was 57 kilos. Right. So don't even look at that aspect. She's a client who's been here for a while now. So it was one of them where it was like, it's not like she's jumped into something. She's been training and things like that. But and she wasn't, she's not fixated on the scales and stuff. So it was an easy win for me in that regard. Don't look at the weight scales. I don't want you to be worrying about that. We're just going to measure it on the day whenever we get assessed. And we're going to be tracking your body fat and lean tissue. Okay, that's the goal. But during this time, what I'm going to be working on you, at least for the first half of this, we're going to be aiming, your goal right now, Brooke, is going to be building as much on them weight as possible. I want you to get stronger. Your goal is to lift as strong as possible, and we're actually going to measure specifically in our training sessions, working together, your increases in the loads, because I want to work on specifically, it was like the 3K, I've got this workout system, it's a 9-week system, and it's the 3K lift platforms, and it works on bench press, your squat, and your deadlift, and every 2 minutes, one of them exercises. Dead simple. So minute 0, 10 reps on the bench press. Minute 2, 10 reps on your squat. Minute 4, 10 reps on your deadlift. Back to exercise 1. So 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So it's methodical in the fact of the time frame is the same all the time. It keeps it laboratory kind of thing. So the recovery is always the same. So then when we're going to week 2, there's 5 rounds of it. 5 rounds of the 3 exercises. So 15 sets basically. And all that happened is every single week, for 3 weeks, we'll look to improve on the weights that we did every single set. Does that make sense? So we could see like, your bench press after the 5 sets, we then add them together and it will give a total load multiplied by the weight and the reps. So we got like a total load in kilograms. And then the week 2, we added them all together and we got like a 13% increase. It was like that kind of thing. So progressive overload was week on week. After the 3rd week, this is what we did. We went down to 5 reps. But every 2 minutes, we still did the same thing. We just went down. So you could see that, or let's say it was 25 kilo bench press by the end of week 3. We could immediately on week 4, when we went down to 5. Went down to 5 reps. All of a sudden, we're increasing the weight again. So we're changing the stimulus. So that was week 4 to 6, going down to 5 reps. And then week 7, 8, and 9 was to go down to 3 reps on that. And then... But then it was testing after that what the initial 10 reps was. So going to her weight, her best one was 25 kilos on the bench press, for example. We'd then test it back in week 7, 8, and 9, and she'd try and go for as many reps as possible on that. Do you see what I mean? So there'd be a progressive overloading issue with it. Now she packed on muscle. In that regard, when I say packed on muscle, just like by the end you could really see a strong frame with it, and that is conditioning of the muscle. We conditioned her to have a frame at the end, and then weeks like for 9 to 15, that was the only time that we focused on fat loss, as in like bringing the calories down. So when she started her calories, she wasn't really tracking them, but I said, right, I want you to start tracking them. She went about 1,600 or something like that, and I says, right, we're taking it up. So we took it to over 2,000 calories before we and kept it there for a period. So she was eating just over 2,000 calories. I just said to her, like, just be over 2,000. You don't have to be way over, just slightly over 2,000. Just aim for that roughly on a daily basis. Way more calories for what she was used to and expecting. She was never that methodical in trying to be, especially during the week. Obviously on a weekend you might be, but I think that's where people underreport is the whole week. They could be 1,600 all week, and then Saturday and Sunday could easily be 3,000 calories. And that doesn't mean you're at 1,600 calories. It means you're over 2,000. What it was for her, she was purposeful in what the food was in the intake was. So we got her to a point, and then obviously the last maybe 6 to 7 weeks out, that's when we took her calories down, and we ended up at around 1,400. And then maybe there was a few days where she went down to 1,200, but it was quite aggressive during the last 6 weeks, and it just shot off her, the body fat, because we had a big plan to go, and she was losing fat during that time, but actually she put weight on first. So initially she was 57 kilos dead on the day. She went up to something like 59.3 or 59.4, and then stayed there for a bit. Then it started coming down a little bit, and then when we started doing the dieting, by the end she was, I know it sounds mental, but she was at 57.0 kilos. But the actual shape, the before and afters, showed a significant difference. She was littler, but she had more muscle in the body, because muscle takes up less room per pound of body fat. So a pound of body, this is funny, but people don't understand this. A pound of body fat, a pound of muscle, they weigh the same. People think it's right, okay, that's smaller, so it's like, no, it weighs the same. It just takes up less room on the body. So by adding muscle, taking the body fat down, if we gained her 3 pound of muscle and dropped her 3 pound of body fat, you're going to look less. Do you get what I mean? So that's where the change was. Whereas another client I've got Duina as an example. She was completely on the other end of the spectrum. She came to me. She was pescatarian, and she went from 83.7 kilos down to 67 kilos. So that's a good nearly 16 kilos, isn't it? Nearly 17 kilos. 16, 17 kilos of weight. So that is a really good weight loss. But it wasn't that I was focused, just she had that much to lose in that regard. So my goal during that process was to maintain the calories. But the problem there was when she came to me, we sat down, same consultation. She was someone who's been calorie counting for a long period of time. And when she came to me, she'd had the last couple of weeks all measured out, and she was like 1,100 calories on average. Right? So I was like, right, okay, so...
Can I ask a question? How long had she been there?
She said for ages. Obviously, whether she had or not, because without assessments, you don't know. But I'm not being funny. If you're at 1,100 calories and you don't think that you're losing body fat, you're lying. Right? You're in a deficit. For sure, because she was someone who was training, so there's no question about it. The problem that comes with it is you may be getting a very low of minimal return by the end because you've been there for so long or whatever. All I know is that I can't start a transformation process when there's a certain amount of body fat that's going to need to be lost. That you can't start a transformation there. So the goal was to take her up and gradually bring it up. Now, that mindset was going to be a bit different for her because she had a certain amount she wanted to lose. So to be putting on calories wasn't a process she was understanding too well at the very start. But I just said, right, do you trust us? You've seen our transformations. There's a reason that you've come here in the first place. You've seen people around you transforming in the gym. So just, do you trust me to do this? If you want to win the first 4 weeks, we'll just stay where you are. You'll lose body fat guaranteed when we start training that way. Or do you want to win the long-term goal, which is in 6 months' time? I think it was 7.5 months altogether during that time. But her process was very different. It was to take it up first, which was the same. So it was like, right, we'll add 200 calories. So you get 1,100 right now. I want you to be anything up to around about 1,400. But I want you to be the way that you feel comfortable. So you might be 1,200 one day, but you might be 1,400 another. Just aim for 1,400 as much as you can. The good news is she was always over 1,300. So she'd done her job and she lost body fat. She was like, oh, brilliant. So, right, we'll measure it again. I was like, right, we'll take it up to 1,600 now. Okay, just aim towards that as much as you can. She lost body fat again. She thought it was some miracle. She was like, I'm eating more and I'm losing. And I was like, you're not. What it is because we're measuring and we're seeing the body fat loss. You'll have been doing that anyway. But what you've got is now we're putting more energy in the tank. You're performing better in the gym. You're probably being more active generally throughout the day because you've actually got more calories going in and more energy.
So you feel like doing more sort of neat activity, walking the dog further. Yeah,
but you're still in a deficit. Yeah. Right, I know because most females, like if they're not, like 2,000 is easier maintenance for most females, based upon doing some form of activity, of course, but training regularly and doing that. I could get pretty much any female up to 2,000 without putting it on, providing they're doing the basics of what I ask them, and methodically training properly. So taking it up, eventually we got it about 2,300 calories, and that's at the point where she didn't drop body fat anymore. But she was dropping body fat week on week and losing weight week on week until we got to about that point. And that was the point that we started the journey. And that was where we went. However, there was a little bit of an issue with Duina because she's in a very, very good stage in her life where holidays are a really good thing for her. So she has lots of holidays. I mean, you train her partner, Angus, right? And then multiple holidays a year, and good. I love that. It's brilliant. So what it was structuring her work based upon it. Now that she understood what calorie maintenance was and actually being at a good calories, she felt the benefits of what it was. She started training like a proper lifter in there. Massive increases. People were noticing their massive increases. People were saying, oh, what are you doing? And, everyone was like, oh, you train, okay, you're dropping this, you're doing that. And she was massively improving in her fitness in the gym and stuff. So she was fully on board. Do you know what I mean? It was like everything that I said she would have done.
She would do, yeah.
So, but what she did tell me is, because I'm someone who needs to plan things, I'm like, right, we've got a 6-month journey here. And she'll be like, right, okay, I just want to let you know, Kev, that I've got about 3 or 4 holidays coming up. She actually had 5, right? But she had 5, some were like mini weekend ones. Others were a good week to 10 days. So what I did with Duina is, because she bought in everything I did, and she gave me the plan of action as to where the issues were going to be in terms of being able to stick to a calorie deficit and things like that. I've done a methodical plan of action where I was like, right, we're going to live at or above your maintenance calories when you're away, and you're not going to worry. But during the times where you're here, we're going to be aggressive. So we're going to use them 4 to 6 weeks that you're in between each one, because it's between 4 and maybe 8 or 9 weeks.
Yeah, it was kind of like several aggressive cutting phases with a diet break in the holiday.
And that's what we called them. And we just said, you're going to have diet breaks, and them are your diet breaks where you can calm down your training intensity, but we're going to go for it during that. She fully got on board with that. She was like, I get it. And
what happened to her results when she came back off holiday? Can you remember? Of interest?
Water differentiation and stuff like that, because what you got to bear in mind is when you're training the muscles, right, when you're stimulating fiber tissue, you're inflaming that area. So you're inflaming the cells, the cellular response, the fibers and stuff like that. So you're asking for the glycogen and water to go in, because that obviously gets nutrients into it, so that it basically works. So that's how you condition a muscle. And when you go on holiday and you're drinking alcohol, loads of inflammatory foods, and going off plan, not exercising anymore, you're getting inflammatory responses and the extracellular or around the organ tissues and stuff like that. So it's like the water differentiation. But I mean, I tell every client this, like, just don't worry about it. You can put 1 to 3%. What it looks like is body fat increase in terms of your body fat readings, but it goes down as quickly as you put it on. I call it the boomerang effect. So it's like, when you throw a boomerang away, it comes back. So
I just think that's important for clients to understand, because I suppose that, most body fat, the stuff with the software we use, it's an algorithm, right? And it can't. That's why it's important to have a human interpret results and say, well, it looks like you've gone up 3%, but you haven't. Like, realistically, maybe you've gone up 0.5% to 1% in actual body fat. The rest's just fluid.
You're completely right there.
Inflammation response. And that's a key thing I think people need to understand, particularly when they get to the end of a transformation, or like Duina. So it was kind of like 2 or 3 transformations in one, by the sounds of it, almost.
It was just a case of maximizing the time that we had at our disposal, and allowing for and accommodating with a proactive thought process to giving her the freedom. She wasn't crackers. It wasn't like she was just going out having big binge nights out and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It was the more, the holidays where she was drinking excessively, but not to a level of like what a 20-year-old would be till 5 a.m. Do you know what I mean? And going that kind of crackers. But it gave her the freedom, and because we were measuring things, it was just a process all the way through that she was fully on board with, and she did exactly as we set out. But knowing that we took the calories down and we were aggressive on the time, more aggressive. When I say aggressive, you got to bear in mind we're talking about someone who is at 2,300, going down to maybe 1,400 calories.
So it's still
on
above.
average.
That's an aggressive day for her, but it's still above what she came to eating.
Yeah, it's aggressive in regards to where it is compared to her
Starting
maintenances.
point. Yeah.
But it's not aggressive as in like you could easily go down lower than that without. As long as I understand the client, they understand me. Like aggressiveness is not as negative as what people in the industry make it out to be. Like some people get massive positive responses from being an aggressive that mentally keeps them on track.
Yeah.
You just can't live there.
Forever.
You can't. So you have to, for me, getting them to understand from maintenance to aggressive, maximum aggressive to complete maintenance, understanding all parts of that is the best way for them to keep it, because then they know that there's they can always move into that when they want and come out of it when they want.
That's why I'm a big fan of wave loading, if I'm honest, because you can have some aggressive days, but even if you have one day a week of higher calories, the body remembers that. So when you have to come out of that aggressive phase, it's not as much of a shock to the body in terms of what you have to physically put in, but also how the body deals with that.
I mean, I call them dickhead days. If you've had a dickhead day and you've been out and done everything like that, sometimes I try and get clients to understand from like, I just throw a word like that at them. They're like, dickhead day. And it's like, it is. So think of it, during the course of a year, how many dickhead days you have, how many undickhead days do you have? And that is what I mean is the opposite end, right? But do people ever do that? What they do is they go back to normal on a Monday.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a dickhead day of 5,000 calories, are you going to have a day the next day where you don't eat?
Yeah, you need to account for it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and they don't account for it. So I use an analogy like that to just get them to understand it, because there's a total week that you can have, and if you're aggressive in one way, are you aggressive in the other? And most people always aggressive in the upward spiral of calories, but they then go back to I'll be back at 2,000 for the next 6 days. You're still in a surplus doing that. So getting them to understand that and try not to have as many dickhead days is the key.
Kev Walker gem there, guys. The term dickhead day and un-dickhead day I personally really liked.
It's great, isn't it? So yeah, when it comes to the two clients, Brooke and Duina, there were totally different ways of looking at it, but they still went through all the same processes. They went through aggressiveness, they went through maintenance, they went through an in-between phase.
Just different phases and stages, different times.
Where one was her perspective for 9 weeks out of 15 was on building. Yeah. And that mental aspect of like, you're here to build muscle, you're here to lift as big as possible.
Yeah.
The other, Duina, was more on the case of where we're using a strategy of when she's going on holiday, she's got the freedom to be at around 2,300. But the only reason that she didn't have the issue when she was away is because we showed her that 2,300 is a normal place to be. Yeah. It's not a bad place. Yeah. But if I just said to Duina that day when she came in that first week, and I looked and I'm like, God, you literally are only on that, and your protein intake's like what? 80 grams, if that. Be like, I'm going to take it to 2,300. Firstly, that wouldn't have been right, because I wouldn't even know if 2,300 was right for her, based upon what she was doing. So again, the methodical take up, but also she would have been like, I'm going to put weight on with that. Yeah. But by taking her up slowly and seeing that she was still in a deficit, and she could actually be in a better calorie intake, so she could have better support for her internal nutrition for the long term, and realise that there's a place between she can be and be up in a maintenance to be in long term sort of never going up, but at the same time living her best life kind of thing. That's for me, teaching through all of that in any transformation, I think, is a fundamental component, because it means the long term, when they walk away from this and they're not here anymore, for example,
they have tools.
I've gave them all the tools in the tank
They know
to basically
do it,
go it on their own. And, you know, to the point they could almost educate someone else. I love the education side of things. It's where I get my kicks on it. Being able to teach them and get them to understand and buy into a strategy that's different to just deficit. How much can I lose? How much can I train? And they're going down that route where they eventually exhaust themselves and have got nowhere left to turn, and eventually give up because they don't understand any other place. That's where, for me, the best part of this is.
Yeah, which is an awful place to be.
So, Kev, I want to actually change. I think we've talked a lot about maintenance there, okay, and what they're all them processes and stuff like that. I want to go into actual, like, what we've built here a little. So what I mean by that is we're a group training facility, and you know how we started out, we trained one-to-one clients and stuff like that. Now, from a business model perspective, it's obvious you can get more, you can make more money doing a group
more people in per hour.
But not just for that aspect, because there's different business models you can make via one-to-one. That could have, why did we build a facility this big if we didn't need to? You know, what I'm trying to get at is why have we created a group training style facility in the first place? What was the fundamental components? What are the big benefits of?
I think when me and you sat down to do this 10, 11, 12 years ago, one of the biggest things that I remember us talking about was how we train a lot of one-to-one clients, and well, without wanting to sound arrogant, we did to a really good level. We were getting really good results. And then we progressed and we started doing smaller groups of 4 to 6 people. And then we had the thought process of, well, wait a minute, how can we give the best possible training experience to the most amount of people at once and make it affordable for lots of people who want to change their body, their mindset, their health, and access fitness, but not everyone could afford one-to-one training. Do you know what I mean? Like it isn't really sustainable for most long term. You can do it for a phase, but we often know that working with clients takes a lot longer than what most people can maybe budget for one-to-one training. You know, maybe they could do 6 weeks with me one-to-one. But if I can get them in a group training facility where I can provide similar results over a longer term for a less cash for them, then that's a winner. So I think that was one of the key fundamentals. And then we went about looking at, right, well, what's good? How can we do that? Well, at the minute I work out of a commercial gym, and they have 1 leg press. They have 1 lat pull down. They have 1 set of dumbbells, 4 benches. How can we make this good? And that's when we came up with the idea of, you came to me one day and said, Kev, you know, it'd be great if we had like 4 of everything. And I'm like, well, it's going to cost a lot of money, Kev. But when you see it in action in there, it's a winner, because we can get more people doing the same thing at once. So the quality of training program we can provide, the workout that's on the screen is actually often could be given to a one-to-one client and be brilliant, but we can scale it up for more people. So their quality of training is quite unique here, I would say.
I think for me, the question that I asked at the start of myself was, right, okay, before I just think of that kind of thing, can I get as good, if not better, results training people in groups than I can one-to-one? So to answer that question was the first thing, because if I couldn't, if that was impossible, then what's the point? Because I knew that from the start, I wanted to be a results-based coach. I didn't just want to train people and do the, you know, all right, just take an hour's thingy and then move on to the next one. I needed purpose as to what I'm doing. Without purpose, I didn't see the point.
Yeah, I mean, some people are happy training boot camps. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. It's what they enjoy. But for you wanted to see a result that gave you satisfaction.
Yeah, because seeing their the result from them and them getting what they needed, that's a good business model to work on, because then people want to get the same thing. They're like, I want a piece of that. Yeah. So a results-based business was something that I always thought, well, if you're the best in the business and you can get the best results, you're going to be able to be the best in the industry and make the most money, for example. So it was always results based. I knew at the early stages, even in the early stages when I looked at other people who are, you know, your idols and your peers and stuff like that. People like Nick Mitchell. I remember looking at the work that he was doing and the results that they were doing back in the day when I first started out, and I was like, wow, that's what he was the first person that actually got me to see someone like a Charles Poliquin, and because he was obviously saying stuff about him and saying like how good he was, and I was like, all right, this Charles who to go and learn from. That's when we actually went down that route, but it was initially stemmed from the fact that these guys were getting great results, and I was like, I can do that. We can do that. So that's where the methodical part come in. And then I said, well, how could one-to-one, how could I get better results than one-to-one? Because at the end of the day, you're doing everything at the same time as them. You're counting every rep. You're analysing every rep. Okay, I'm on a rep counter. I analyse what I do. There's actually a joke in the gym that I'm like this, at the head tilter, and people always ask to say, you just always tilt your head, and I'm like, I know, but I'm digressing what someone's doing. It's something that I've always done, and I'm like, I like to see the movement pattern, because there's the cues on teaching my clients, so they'll go through it, and as they're doing it, I'm like, right, okay, no, you know, protract your shoulders more, or retract, you know, it's that kind of thing. So as they're doing it, I'm purposely telling them what they're doing. So being a rep counter is something I've never been. You know, you count your own reps. I'm here to tell you how to make sure you're doing it, and that you're doing it right, and that squeeze isn't good enough. Squeeze harder, get it in, put it in. That's what I'm about. So I was like, well, how can you better that? And it's like, well, firstly, here's one benefit: what it would cost to do one session a week with a client over doing 3 sessions a week with a client with a group format, paying an affordable price between them, which would equate to, let's say it was the same price, but instead of one person paying £40 an hour, I've got 4 people paying £10 an hour. So I get to see them 3 times. So in my head, I'm like, well, if I can see them 3 times, surely I'll get better results.
Well,
so
the education like, you can give them both in and out of the gym.
I know, because that one session a week means that if I'm doing that one a week and I'm asking them to do the things outside of it, are they doing it?
And they could do it, but they can go through the motions. What's the intensity like?
Exactly.
What's the level like?
Sitting on the phone doing whatever. I'm like, no, I can guide 3 quality sessions by doing that. Like, right, okay, and what are the benefit can come from that? Well, if they're training as a 4 and they're getting used to each other, right, and I'm teaching them how to spot each other, and I'm educating them at the same time. All right, okay, so I'm able to, you know, if it's a 3-in-1 count, someone's doing it just beforehand, I'll put the person who I think is more equipped on it, and then what happens is they're going down 3 second and 1 second up. The person who's newer coming in is seeing that visually at the same time, and I'm like, right, that's how I want you to do. See how he's retracting his shoulders? See how he's set up before he starts? That's what I want you to focus on now. So there's an aspect of education. The next one is inspiration. So inspiration is seeing someone else achieving results. It's infectious. So again, then it's atmosphere and energy. Now, in the early days where I would take anyone on, right? I don't mean to say it's in a horrible way, but sometimes I just you don't click with everyone, do you?
No.
So I would take anyone on because I need to earn some dough. I need to actually keep my bread and butter and actually build a business. So I would take on anyone that I wanted. Now, that I could. The problem with that is it wasn't necessarily congruent.
They didn't fit with you, and sometimes they might not fit in the group.
No, I'm on about a 1-to-1.
Right.
But the difference with a group is, right, there can be connections in different ways. And I remember there was one client who I had 1-to-1, and it was in the period of where we moved into group training, and that 1-to-1 person I just struggled to connect with in a way that was like I was like, we could really get proper connections and stuff. Whereas some clients, I was just like, you know, it's like best mates kind of, but at the same time, like, I just struggled. Whereas when I transferred into there, that was a client that I said, look, I'm moving this time, this particular time of the day is going to be going to a group format. I'm going to bring you, and then they thrived. And I actually clicked because they were clicking with some other people in that group, and they formed connections in ways that I would never have been able to see. And then I could connect with that because of them. And I know it sounds weird, but like, it actually brought a much better mindset for me. It didn't matter from an energy vampire perspective, because as an overall group, there was always something that I could easily build connections with. And I really thrived off that. So I fed really well because I could bring the energy about the room a bit better. Now, I started off in the industry being thrown into group training, like boot camps, body combat, body pump, you know, the lycra lifestyle. I was a proper lycra boy.
Which I want to see that.
But one of the best parts of that was I was thrown into what energy and atmosphere did.
Yeah.
Like, for example, body combat. You know, it's all about the kias and the punches and kicks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The energy in the room, it was just vibrant.
It's fun, right?
It was fucking electric, man. And I loved it. And I really got my best out of myself doing that.
Yeah.
And these were things that I was like, they're missing out on these kind of things by having a one-to-one approach.
Yeah.
If I could translate that into what weight training is and get the best out of people from energy, atmosphere, inspiration, getting the people pushing each other in a healthy, competitive way, but at the same time, having people doing the spotting and stuff, and things like that. And if I can teach that properly, so I don't have to overlook it, so I don't have to spot every rep because they're doing it themselves, and I can oversee a workout because I come from a background of sport, football in particular. I was a very unconfident kid. I had massive acne issues. I was on all the Roaccutane and things like that. Honestly, I'd speak to people and I'd go beetroot red because I felt that unconfident. That's what got me into fitness and physique and things like that. Sport, like the sport itself, when I played football, I never once thought about my skin or thought about people looking at us going, oh, he's spotty him. I didn't feel like that because I was involved in the game. I was engrossed in it. And I loved the camaraderie of like a team aspect, and it made me a bit more popular in school because like I was playing for the top level teams. I was playing for Newcastle and all them sort of things. So I felt more confident in myself. So, and that being as part of a team made me feel important. It made me feel like I was part of something rather than being that spotty kid who everyone just looked at and was like, oh, look at that. That's how I felt. So being involved in things was really beneficial to me. So I was like, I would love to take this into that realm because them were the benefits that I got. And I think as kids, we were involved in this a lot more in schools and things like that. But as we move into adulthood, we do lose that sporting aspect and that competitive edge. So bringing that back into the world was something I wanted to do. Like weight training was a massive importance to me as I grew up because the problem that happened to me from sports was I got involved in I was obsessed with it. I had done cross country. I was on the cricket team. I was on the football team. I was captain of my house team at school. It was like, the problem was I became a rake. And I actually was in hospital quite a lot through broken bones. I broke this arm twice.
Made of glass.
Honestly, I was made of glass, and it was really bad because I was playing football all the time, and I was in it. I was literally just breaking bones, like at least twice a year and stuff. And that's where the doctor said you need to do some weight training. I was about 16, 17. They were like, you need to do something in that, and that's where that part come from. Then it got into doing that as a course, did my degree and stuff. Then I did this, my PT qualification, and then that's when my one-to-ones took off. I went to Greens. You got involved. You were actually a client of mine. You came in. You were like, Kev, I love what you do, and I would love to make this a career. Well, I think we'll talk about that another time because it's a really good one. To be fair, and then you got involved. And then we got to a point where we're like both sold out. I think 18 months it took you to get to a point where it was like, I'm turning people away. That's when we got into like, well, actually, why don't we do 2 at once or 4 at once? And that's where we built it slowly in a commercial gym to the point eventually where it was like the commercial gym hated because we're training multiple people at once in the gym, and we were going out of the way in the corners doing like little circuits.
Paying them a flat rent, but...
and then they were starting to be like, no, you need to try. Like I was ending up, I remember I was paying like two to 3 times more than some of the other PTs, and they were like wanting to do that to you as well. And I was like, Kev, we need to get out of here. So that was where group training got involved, and we were like, well, actually, I can train people and get better results or just as good results as what it was one-to-one. It makes more economical sense from a business standpoint because we can make more bang for your buck. And to be fair, if we were going to open our own gym, we were going to massively increase our overheads. So we needed to maximize the time that we were going to spend in the gym, didn't we? So we went from £40 an hour working in, 30 to 40 pound an hour as a one-to-one coach in the Newcastle area, to being able to say, oh, well, we could charge maybe 80 pound an hour, something like that, and that would massively improve. So then we opened the gym, didn't we? And then that's when it came into group training. It was still semi-private training at that point, but then we were like, well, could we not transfer this into like even a larger group again to make it more affordable? Because semi-private training was still, it wasn't available to everyone. And I think from our thought processes, the world needs to see our training. The world needs to see the way that we do things, because we're getting so many good results, such a positive aspect.
Yeah.
We're turning people away. I don't want to turn people away.
Yeah.
So we wrote another couple of coaches, and we've done a group training format. So we went from like 6 to 8 people in a semi-private, then 8 to 24, so we could have like 3 times in affordability. High level one-to-one, mid-level semi-private, and a very affordable large group training. And then what it was over these years we've come to build it, we've realised, and we added to the facility, and as you mentioned, we've got 4 to 8 of every single piece of kit, and we realised, actually, we could do exactly the same results, because I think what the killer thing was for us is we were getting as many transformations with large group as we were with semi-private. And that was the thing for me, where it was like, well, look, the retention rates are just as high in both, but the reality is it's just not as affordable as that way. And I think when COVID came, that was the big thing for us. We had to change our stance in terms of there, because all of a sudden them overheads drastically increased.
Massively,
and it made that was the killer of what semi-private was, and one-to-one. Like I don't do one-to-one at all now, you know. And it's one of them where it just doesn't make sense. Economical sense. So, and I can get as good results, if not better, doing a group training format. We've got a 500k facility now, which has got 4 to everything. If you come in, 4 leg presses, 4 leg extensions, 4 leg curls, 4 chest presses, 4 cable machines, 16 rigs with for bench press and squatting and stuff like that. And over the course of that, which is 10 to 12 years, we've been able to build.
Yeah, it's took time, but it's what allows us to create really high-end program design, I'd say. For, in our heads, almost a one-to-one client. I mean, playing devil's advocate, the one thing I know people will comment on here is, okay, Kev, you've got a great group training facility, and you're saying that you can almost deliver as good as or better results in large group format that you can one-to-one, but how do you cater for people in a more bespoke fashion within the group? You know, if I'm in a one-to-one format, and someone has an L5 disc problem like me, deadlift might not be the move for them. But we're doing a group training format, deadlift's in the program. How do we get around that? Because I think that's important for people to understand. That is not something that me and you took lightly or overlooked.
Well, it was the thing that me and you said, even during all the transitions into building the model that we think is right for our business to sustain and thrive in all the economical issues that were going on. The big thing for me was this: we can't lose the one-to-one aspect of it. It was that simple. If we can't do the bespoke aspect of it, there is no point. There's no point in moving or transitioning, because we know the best retention is through the best accountability. The best accountability comes from personalization. The best personalization means a continuous element of the journey that is just me and the client. So by the assessments that we do in here on a bi-weekly, monthly basis is the key fundamental. It has to stay, is what we said. So where, you know, group training sessions are going on, we've got another staff member in the gym at the same time doing all the assessment procedures, and they're sticking to that, and they've got their own one-to-one coach. That's the first thing.
So they get personal time.
They get the personal regularly. Time. It has to be. We
even in a large group format.
Because then
they're not left to use a machine. They actually get to sit down and talk with the coach.
But there's the benefits of both worlds. You're getting the one-to-one style coaching, but you're getting the benefits of all the group training aspects that
and
we
the
do,
affordability aspect.
Fun, banter, because you know if you can't have them in it, and it's just training and there's no banter going on and stuff like that, clients won't stay involved. So that's why, you know, we create the training programs that we do, the methodical changes that we make to it to keep the stimulus up, but also the stimulus of like the people that they build the rapport with. I mean, best friends are being made here. I've got best friends in here that
husbands and wives.
I go out with my clients in here. We go to events, community building and stuff, because it's so important to keep the culture. We've built a really strong culture, and the key is to keep that no matter what. So we've got the best of both worlds, and that's where for me it means it's the most affordable, so the clients will stay the longest term possible, because we can keep more people involved, because it's not breaking the bank. So I'd rather keep people for multiple years than keep people for a couple of months.
So basically that window of opportunity for the client to have one-to-one time with a coach gives them the bespoke touch in terms of us helping them overcome an obstacle or a struggle they're facing currently, whether it's, oh, Kev, I did this workout last week and that exercise, it just didn't feel right. What doesn't work with my injuries, no problem. I want you to do X, Y, or Z this week.
Yeah, because then the person who's the coach, so let's say it's me for that particular, let's just say Joe Blogs, I then refer they're telling me their issues, problems, challenges. I'm helping them overcome it. What happens then is we have a weekly meeting as coaches, and then what we do is we talk through the things and say, right, Joe Blogs, he's got this issue at the minute, or he's on a depleted calorie amounts right now. So right now, I need you to understand that his training session might dip a little, but we talk with it. We talk with all the coaches because they need to understand where every client's at, and if there's a change that's going on, or if there's a workaround that needs to be done, there's a different exercise. That client will still go and do it. So I remember, let's say Joe Blogs and Peter, as an example, they're partnering up and pushing each other in the gym. Well, we're overseeing the workout. We've set the workout out. We've put it through. We've took them through it. They're doing the session. He might be doing a squat, whereas because of the way that he's got an issue, let's say with his back or something, we've got him on the hack squat. They can still train at the same time, where he does his squat. He goes over, gets under the support, and his swap. And then he goes away and does his hack squat. So I suppose that gets into an interesting point then, with regards to injury, and should it hold you back? Absolutely not. We've got clients, I mean, there's clients in here who've been in casts and things like that. And I'm not saying we're training the cast and stuff, but we're working around them. It's very simple. We can still customize a plan of action. I've got a client called Peter Hansen. And Peter, for example, was doing the leading up to a marathon. So with his structure, we took the leg training session out. I gave him a different workout so that he could train on the leg day. So there was some form of leg training, but in the days where it's a full leg session, for example, that's no good for him when he's doing when he's pounding the pavement. Get any
miles in.
And he's building their miles up. So customizing a plan for every single client can be done in the way that we do it, because every client has got their own one-to-one coach that they come in here every other week and stuff. We sit down, we'll talk about where they're going, what they're doing, if they've got a sport, if they've got an event that they're doing, in particular hobby that they've got. We build that into their plan of action, and we might change things based upon injuries, corrections and stuff like that, but they're still going out, following it and doing the plan of action, but making the tweaks and things based upon having a coach telling them that. And that is why group training for us still becomes a very bespoke system at a very affordable rate. And I think a lot of our clients, I mean, a lot of them tell me in that way, they say that's what they appreciate the most about this. They can't believe they get such an affordable rate for such a bespoke way of doing it. And you can get a lot out of this, or as little as you want, based upon how much you're asking from us. And that's what it's about. You can't just come here and do the sessions. There are clients who just like to come and
they're
train,
happy with that,
and they like to come and train and do it. The fact that they've got a gym to themselves, they're never going. People are never on the kit, and that's a big deal to them. That knowing that it's all coach led, and they can get the questions done, but they don't really want to partake too much in this aspect. The behind the scenes, they're just happy. But there might be a point in their time where they say, do you know what it is? I'm ready to come, and I'm ready to make commitments that are based beyond just the training aspect, and I want you to guide me on a journey. Or there's people who literally want every aspect of this, and they want to maximize their full rate at what they're paying because they want the best possible service. It's you on your journey at the time that you're doing it, basically. And that's what I love about this, that we've over many years we've structured something that gives as much as little as the client needs. If a client's given 120% to it, I'll give 150. If a client's given 70% of this, I'll give 75. I always want to give a little bit as much to them, so that they know where they're at on the journey. And if they want more, I'll be like, well, you're gonna have to give me more as well, because I'm not doing everything and not having the return from you. So, and I that's what clients appreciate, in my opinion.
I agree. Very special, unique environment.
I mean, one thing I think in regards to the next aspect of this, I have got a question that someone did message me, and it should be in the Q&A, but I think this is also, it relays into a few things that we've talked about, from maintenance, calories, and the best way to transform a body. People ask me on what's better, what's the difference, like when it comes to cardio versus weight training. Like, it's a good question.
In terms of what's more effective?
Yeah, I mean, like, at the end of the day, again, it's like that when it comes to scale weight. There's a way that people perceive that. It's all about the weight scales. They don't look at it from a body composition. They just look at weight loss. Or the lighter on the scales. Yes, it must be working. Then it comes to cardio versus weight training. And there's also a similar stigma to that. You burn more calories doing cardio.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? So it's like, when it comes to cardio versus weight loss, what's your opinion on that first?
I think you have to understand the differences within those terms. So cardio, I can do steady state cardio. I could go for a walk. I could go for a run. Which is more aerobic work, uses a very different energy system as opposed to anaerobic cardio. So I could send you out the track, say, Kev, do the 100 meters 10 times.
Cheers.
That would elicit a very different response in terms of a workout, but also how you'll feel afterwards and what it'll do to your body afterwards.
Are you on about was it the EPOC effect?
Yeah. So excessive post-oxygen consumption. What you do to your body will have very different effects afterwards. Now, in terms of it's one of them. It sounds like I'm sitting on the fence, but I'm not. But all of those, and weight training, all of those 3 core fundamentals I use with clients, but in varying degrees. For example, if you get a client who comes to you straight away and they're quite new, would I smash them with loads of sort of HIIT training things straight away alongside the fundamental strength work? No. What I might do is say, look, explain to them that in my opinion, from working with clients and all of the research that's out there, weight training should be your fundamental. The key lifts, that's how you should build your fitness lifestyle around your weights. Then you slot in other aspects of the cardio at different times. It's not that one's necessarily better. I hate that term. I just find you have to know when to use them. So if I have a new client, I would most certainly say, right, you get your 3 weight training sessions in. I explain to them why. Well, weight training builds muscle. It builds strength. Muscle will burn more body fat at rest. It's metabolic tissue. So you've come to me and you say, Kev, I want to burn body fat. I want to drop weight. Okay, the more muscle you build, think of it this way, a boxer or a bodybuilder, when he needs to get back in shape, he gets there really quickly because he has more metabolic tissue to work with, which raises his metabolic rate, so it burns more calories at rest. If you're constantly just doing steady state cardio, that's not bad, but it will only burn calories generally, say if I go on a run, for the time I perform it. So I could run from here to Jesmond Dean, it's 4K, I'll burn 500 calories, but then that's it when I stop. When I train with weight, I can carry on, that's the epoch. My body will carry on that demand of raising the metabolic rate to burn more calories. That's what the science proves. So depending on where the client's at and their ability, I will use all, but it will all be structured around weights as the fundamental, resistance training. And then, if someone's training at a really good level, sometimes all they need, depending on what their goal is some more walking, a bit of steady state cardio. Sometimes they need to push a little bit further and they need a few more anaerobic HIIT sessions in. So all are good. But it's about knowing when to use them and who to use them with.
So, for example, let's say you're doing hill sprints to create the massive anaerobic effect, which also does elicit like an high epoch response.
Massive.
Because you're depleting glycogen and stimulating the heart rate in an excessively fast way to deliver a response.
There's loads of research as well to say that supplementing weight training with something like that actually promotes muscle growth. Yeah. So if you're someone who wants to build
IGF and things like that.
There's so much research now that says, well, actually, if you do a little bit of that, you're going to exacerbate and improve what you're doing in the gym anyway. Yeah.
But you're not going to throw that to a client who's maybe 130 kilos and has got a lot of body fat to lose and is just starting in the gym.
Got to work to their level, man.
Yeah. So all of them have a response. Firstly, you're totally right, and they all elicit a different way, so they've all got their benefits. And for example, list training, low intensity steady state, going on the cross trainer for 30 minutes, it's better than sitting on a couch.
And
simple as that
sort of training is great for mindset, because it allows you to collect your thoughts.
But there's another one as well. You can do a lot of that for not wearing the tank out.
Not wearing the body out.
So for people who maybe can't get outdoors or can't get their steps in, doing that after a session, weight training session for 20-30 minutes, because they've been sitting at a desk till from 9 till 5, and they've got to go back home and it's winter and they've got 2 kids. They can't
for most people. Let's say if you get someone here and they're really overweight and they need to drop weight quickly, I'll always say, you try and get your weight sessions in for me, commit to that, but then afterwards you do exactly that. Putting them in a small deficit, generally, and getting them to do more NEAT or walking like that, walk the dog further, stuff that doesn't really drain their nervous system or their body too much at this stage, they'll see great results on that.
Yeah.
Always.
So we know that cardio is a great tool, but that's what I think it is. And I'm someone who loves cardio. Personally, I come from a sporting background, so I do love the effect of
I've grown to love it, mainly for doing more with you, I suppose. Yeah. I used to hate it, but now I don't do it. I like how it makes me feel.
But you're periodic. Sometimes you'll push it a bit more, sometimes you'll back off, and it's just one of them where it is the staple is what we're trying to get at. Is the staple is your 2 to 3 sessions.
It's your weight training, your resistance work.
Yeah. And then throwing that in more and less as you go through the process. I mean, we've got a system called Hybrid, which is a service that we use, which is a fundamental element of all the best components of what training brings.
Being good at a bit of everything.
Yeah, weight training, strongman, love strongman, functional, strong girl training.
Functional fitness.
Yeah, we've got cardio from Liss, high intensity, but again in that session some people wouldn't be right to be doing sprint training, whereas others they're in an element where they can. So again we just change that off, so when it comes to that particular part of the workout, if they're new and coming in and just starting, it would be right, you're doing this at this particular point, whereas they'll do this at this particular point. And the benefits of will transition them in when it's the right time, because the benefits of all of it together is what brings the overall effect of the best output. We're trying to give a general sense of all aspects of fitness to get the benefits overall. We want people to really get the benefits of everything. So one thing I want to go into weight training, because you mentioned it before, you said energy system training for cardio. Now, this is what people I don't think understand much. That same energy system can get worked in weight training as well.
Oh yeah.
Because when you were talking about that, you're saying let's talk about them. You got anaerobic, you got aerobic, and then you've got the in between, the lactic kind of thing, right? Those are the 3 energy systems. One's pushing the lactic acid threshold, and you're pushing that. Aerobic can be basically from 60 seconds up to however long you're going. It's an hour of non-stop cardio where you're able to sustain it, maybe a 7 out of 10 intensity the whole way through. It feels worse than that, but it is about a 7% intensity. It's because you want to give up, but it's a mindset thing, isn't it? Whereas your lactic thresholds, you're pushing the boat and your threshold to a point where it all of a sudden has to start slowing down. Then you've got your anaerobic, which is maximal intensity, which can
moving a fast load or something heavy quickly,
pushing it on, let's say up to 5 reps, and then all of a sudden you've got nothing.
15-20 seconds and that energy system's gone.
Exactly.
Creatine phosphate is used.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what the difference is in the energy systems, and they can be done in weight training as well. This is what people need to understand, and that's why there's like 4 typical pillars in strength training. You've got your what do you call it, relative
strength training.
You've got functional hypertrophy, you've got hypertrophy, and then endurance. So basically think of this as like you 1 to 5 reps for relative,
6,
5 to 8, 8 to 12, and then 12 plus for endurance. So what we like to do in the methodologies that we bring to our training is the same thing. We're very methodical with what we do. We bring training in, we'll change the rep ranges. We might start off on like a 12 repetition for week 1 and 2 for, let's say, the bench press. We bring it into week 3 and 4. We bring it down for the repetition ranges, maybe even 5 and 6. We'll bring it down again so that people sample all these different rep ranges, because females love to train in the 10 to 15 reps. That's great for endurance, but what about the relative strength? I've had some amazing changes in females in particular when we've went to like the 5x5 system.
Program,
They'll honestly,
because
the
their body,
that they get is ridiculous.
The myofibrillar response the body hasn't had before. And they haven't. I know females are scared to build a muscle. Generally, I know I'm stereotyping to a point, but they are from most of
back in the day. I think it's a very different world now.
But even some like, I don't want to be bulky. But what they don't understand is just creating that density to a muscle tissue then relays building that strength. When they go back to the high rep work that they love, they're stronger, so they can move more weight, so they burn more calories. When they push 10 to 15 reps, and it's explaining the benefits of all of the different aspects that as you said, the 4 pillars of lifting.
And cardio is also a very easy one to wear the tank out. That's the thing. Whereas weight training can progressively build you. Cardio can actually, yes, it can build an engine efficiently.
Rehabilitate you.
But can debilitate
There's
you.
lots of research out there if anyone wants to read it on, runners who maybe do excessive miles, they do long runs 5-6 times a week. What they're actually doing to their the internals, the stress they're putting on the heart, the inflammation on the body, the wear and tear on joints isn't great for some.
Yeah. And I think that's where people need to understand of it is like really think of that as the tool. Obviously, sports performance on a different level.
Totally,
we're talking about Gen Pop.
Yeah.
We've got clients who love our shred type programs, which is the cardio and functional fitness and weight training mixed together.
Yeah.
But again, even for me, with what I do and what I've got going on in my life, that is a big impact on whether it actually can work for me to the best degree. And I've learned that anything over 30 minutes is way too long for me, because I'm doing my 3 sessions a week in my weight training.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get sore from them workouts. You know, I'm aiming to stimulate it, and I work hard. I'm depleting my glycogen levels, so I prefer to work hard in them ones. And then the cardio that I do, personally for me, because I get broken sleep still, because I've got a busy, stressful job. And what I mean by that is it's always, you know, I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of, cogs to sort of maneuver.
Yeah.
I can have a very stressful day because something comes at me
Yeah.
out of nowhere, which was out of my plan of action. You know what that's like. Someone calls in sick. All of a sudden you have to try and fix that cover regime.
Yeah.
It's tiny things like that can make big impacts to depleting your energy stores. Mm-hmm. So I've got to think when I'm doing my cardio how to get the best out of it, because I do enjoy it. So it could be a run with the dogs, doing something like fartlek training. And again, it's somewhere where it's like I'm basing it upon what my current energy levels are like. And quite often with my cardio, it's more about to feel better and stimulated and energetic after it rather than worn out. Yeah. That's the way I try to teach my cardio.
The nice thing about cardio is it doesn't take much planning. You can do it anywhere. Like you mentioned, fartlek training, it's brilliant. You go outside, you run into a lamppost, then you stop and you can go again.
Run into a lamppost or run up
to a lamppost. Well, with my eyes, I just walked into a machine out there before, legit. But no, but it can be very, improvised, spontaneous. Yeah. Whereas with weight training, obviously you need to be in a gym generally, and it has to be a bit more structured. But for me, I love doing the cardio at these summer months.
We done a great workout
last week
in the sun.
In the sun.
So we did
20 minutes,
150 meters on the ski erg.
Yep.
We then did was it the truck pulls? So we pulled the truck and then pushed the prowler back.
We
then did farmers walks, 1 lap of that. Then we went on to
a couple of resistance
12 dumbbell chest press.
Yeah.
Then it was 20 reps, 10 on each arm on the seated bicep curl dumbbells. Yeah. Then we ran to the end of the building.
Yeah.
It was about 200 meters in it.
Much more aerobic based towards the end, 60-second run.
And then it took pretty much precisely 5 minutes per round. So we were done in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But although I felt worn out a little bit, I felt even more energetic. I felt like, oh, that's great. I almost said to you to do a 5th one, but I was like, no, don't, because we're all going to train the next day. We trained 3 days in a row, and I did plan on training the next day with weights. So that 20 minutes, I felt quite sore from the previous workout, but that took it almost like rejuvenated my muscles, and I felt great the next day for it. So that's for me what my cardio sessions are about. It's just to stimulate, just to be able to add onto my plan of action, but not wear the tank out, so to speak. So then I end up negating the important sessions, which are for me the weight training.
Yeah. So the takeaway point is resistance training should be the fundamentals for most, but cardio most definitely has its place.
Yeah. So with that being said, this is something that I've found with clients. I think you'll agree with me on this. So what I have found with clients is this: calories and chasing it in the session to burn. A lot of clients, they'll come at me and they're like, oh, I burned 700 in that session. God, that one, I burned 12. Oh, I only burned 240 in this one.
So
and they actually assess that as like a bad session. Yeah. And I'd be like, some of the epoch sessions that we're talking about. I mean, I'd done a workout once. You know, that's why I'll never do it again to clients. But basically it was one prowler, 1 minute on the prowler, 5 minutes rest, 5 times.
Yeah.
And that absolutely killed them.
I bet they were spewing.
Dead. People wanted to spew and things like that. I just wanted to show them a different methodology and show them what actually true anaerobic training is, and push it. Well, it starts off anaerobic and ends up being more in the lactic threshold because you're going for 60 seconds. So your first 10 to 20 seconds, you're just bombing up and down on the laps.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you move into that lactic threshold. Yeah. And then what happens is you can see them, they're walking by the end. You're giving them 5 minutes rest. So when you're explaining to them this at the start of a workout and they're like, all right, okay. And then I get 5 minutes rest and I've got to do it 5 times.
That's easy.
I'm lying, actually. It was only 4 times I did this because it was a 20-minute workout. And I said, that's all you've got to do. Now we're finished. They're like, right, okay. I could see the confidence in the room, just like thinking. And the 4th session, literally people were dying on the floor. And because I was asking them to go at max intensity, I was pushing them. So it was like minute 1, 5 minutes later, minute 6, go again. And then you could see by the 3rd one, they were absolutely gassed because they've not trained in that energy environment before. Yeah. They've not really trained true lactic threshold in that capacity. They think they're doing interval training, but it's like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. That's not high intensity interval training.
No, that's interval training.
Interval training.
That's aerobic.
That's up and down with the heart rate. And it's a good way of doing it, a really good train. But again, like everything, but it's very different to training in a like 1-to-8 rest ratio. Sometimes I've done it where it's like 1 lap of the prowler, 1 in 8 people. And like, again, they look at it and they're like, that's it. And I'll be like, yep, 5 sets of that. And I'll be like, set 1, then 7 people go ahead of them. And they're like, they feel like it's, by the time they get to set 3, 4, and 5, it's a completely different world because it's explosive and it's just a completely different way of training. It's like me playing 5-a-side when I haven't played 5-a-side in multiple years. I might have been fit in the past and I might be fit now doing my weight training stuff. But when
that's a different world. When
I transfer into it for the first time, it's a different feel. The energy system is a completely different feel. You're gassed after the first 5 minutes. You're like, Jesus, I thought I was fit and I'm not. But you are fit. You're just not fit.
Not fit in that.
You know, it's sport,
in that environment.
That's another thing. Sport specific training. It's not doing wood chops for golf. Sport specific is getting strong in weight training. In particular, and then feeding that into your sport specific by doing the sport itself and letting that transfer in.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing Charles taught all of his students, wasn't it? People would say that, all right, what do I need to do to improve my golf game or tennis or football? And he went, just go and weight train, man. Do the big lifts. That's all.
Get really good at pull-ups. They'll be like, pull-ups isn't mimicking that. You're not trying to mimic the sport. You're not trying to get, if you're doing a scrum, the prowler doesn't necessarily make you better at that. Scrumming makes you better at that. So the stronger you are, the better that you can transfer in. That's the key component that Charles taught me in an early age and got me out of that mentality. Because I remember when I first started training people were like, oh, I'm a golfer. And I'd be like, I remember doing wood chops. And I was like thinking that must transfer in.
You give wood chops a bad name, but...
I'm not, but you're right. But I'm not, it's just that's a great example of it. And you see people doing it and be like, oh, do that. And it's not the same. It's completely different. The two completely different things. So when it comes to the calorie burn in the session, and they're trying to associate that with how well they've done, but also maybe how, I think from that perspective, I tend to find that people who are like that sometimes think, oh, well, I can have them calories back by having that many. But that's not the purpose. Where your results come from, what your aesthetics, let's say fat loss, that shouldn't come from how much you're training. Because all you're doing is that's the quickest way to wearing your body out. You get efficient and adaptive. That's what you said before. It's the more efficient and adaptive, that means you're going to have to go longer.
The body's the most adaptive computer on the planet.
Fat loss should come from the kitchen and what you put in terms of the input, so that you can then match the output and then some more. And by doing that, by maybe matching that and then adding some low intensity steady state work to just pull them extra calories off to without wearing the tank out, can be your biggest beneficiary in terms of the fat loss.
The other thing as well, I've got an Apple Watch and I do love it, but how accurate are they to a point? How can we measure that? Secondly, I'm definitely agree with the point you touched on there. I find clients who are really obsessive about a calorie burn within a workout are just using that as a means to treat themselves more. So they're burning 600 calories, but then they're putting twice as much in. Oh, I did 600 calories. I'm going to have this, and this. And that's not what it's about. It creates an unhealthy mindset, I think, with workouts, what you're doing within the workout and what you do after the workout.
I think almost going back to maintenance calories kind of thing, right? And saying, right, well, because this is what they do. They'll go on a calorie counter, tells them that they can get away with 2,500 calories at maintenance. Now, firstly, that's not necessarily true because that's going off a calculator. That's giving you an estimated protocol based upon your output that you give on your work job. You could be someone who's very labor intensive, someone who's a desk chair person. And you're using that because you're a desk-based person, or someone who's like that. You're using your training to get them extra calories. Be like, oh, I burned 800 calories there, so I'll be on 2,500. It means that I'm only 1,800, so I can eat an extra 800 800 calories. And that's the way some
doesn't
people go.
Always work like that.
Isn't how it
the
works.
other thing that I'm not keen on measuring performance through calorie burn within a session on a watches or whatever is I find it causes people to then really overtrain. So they'll think, right, it's all about the burn. I need to do that again tomorrow. I need to do that again tomorrow. And that just leads you down a path of injury, basically, in feeling worn out. And there's a term within fitness, it's called interference. So if I'm looking to change my body composition, the fundamentals, weight training, right? But then I'm doing lots of cardio and I'm tracking the calories in my watch, the two aren't always, they don't match, they don't sync well together, because one's trying to get your body to do one thing, whereas too much cardio in that respect just downregulates all of the hormones that you're trying to elicit with the weight training. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it's like...
it provides a lot of fun in terms of for some people, you know, there's the my zone stuff and they get the heart rate on the screen.
We looked into it and we were considering it as a tool, but we knew from our ethos and our methodology, it could go down a route of people wearing themselves out. When actually we're a results-based business for
the point I'm trying to make is it's abused and it's overused to a point.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that's why we went away from it when initially we thought that's a good idea. It's it gives people a challenge. I think people that's one thing. If people love challenges, people love to challenge themselves. So, but I still think that needs to be on a more individual basis, which means that it's not right for everyone. So if everyone's doing the same thing, and even when it comes to group training, even when we're doing it that way and we don't change things specifically for that client, there will be people who will not get the best benefit from it. There will be people who work with it, but that's where the individualization comes in. Therefore, bringing something like that in doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get the best out of that client, because they're going to go down a route that we don't think is right for them. Whereas like we have the staples in place, we add and take away as I'm taking people along the journey. So some people I'm taking away from cardio for a period just to basically balance the books and get a certain standard of what we're setting or basing our foundation on, then allowing them to move into things as we get through the journey to lead toward a result for the long term, which is what we started this whole podcast off. And that's like, are we just here for the short term win to get them on board, or are we here to give them the long term success?
Are you here to win the battle, or are you here to win the war?
Are we and basically periodizing it a little bit more effectively so that the client can actually be more methodical and see how to come in and out of a transformation effectively without negating all the work that they've done and undoing it because they didn't learn the other principles that were there of going from aggressive into less aggressive into maintenance. So lead me on to the next thing, Kev. Another one, since we're talking about the gym and the environment and things like that, another one that I'm sure you get a lot of questions on. What's the best muscle split?
Oh, God. Yeah.
It's a hard one, isn't it?
Oh, well, every day I'm in the gym, so, what's the best muscle split? It's personal to you. How much time do you have? I've got a very good friend. He literally has 20 minutes to work out, and he can do that. I don't have a friend, you're right.
You don't.
I have acquaintances. He can train 20 minutes 3 to 4 times a week max, because he has a really busy job. He has a big commute and he's got kids. So for him, maybe more of a full-bodied approach works really well, or frequency of training. He might do legs and shoulders one day, chest back the next day, and then he's does arms or whatever and abs, but then he's back to day one so he can hit the muscle more frequently. It's all relevant to where you're at. Personally, for me, we change the program split here every 2 weeks. The workouts, at least, the muscle split may change every 4 to 6 weeks. Mostly you don't get bored. If you're an advanced trainee, you'll probably need a change up more often.
This is the thing.
If you knew the same workout program could work for you you could do exactly the same workout for 12 weeks and you'll see results.
Yeah. It's very simple for me when it comes to training splits, right? When a client comes to me, this is my thought process. I'm hoping they're going to be with me for a year to see what proper education is over a long period of time. I want them here forever. The reality, it'll be great. That'll be, so I've got to think like that. If they're going to be here in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 4 years' time, what is the best thing for them, right? So I've got to look at it from that aspect and saying, right, keeping them in the game's the key.
Keeping them injury free and motivated.
4 weeks of training versus 2 years of training is always going to be more beneficial to have 2 years of training, because they're going to build the capacity. So I've got to look at it from the long term. So looking at it from the long term, it's then saying, right, okay, so if they're only training a few times a week compared to multiple times a week, again, that changes it. So let's say it's only 3 times a week. Yes, you're absolutely right. A full body split is going to be the best benefit of them. However, there is a stimulus reduction to everything that you do. So if I go for 2 years where there's only ever doing a full body split,
splits, yeah.
The boredom, never mind anything else, the stimulus, it's like doing five miles once a week, every week for 52 weeks.
Yeah.
You're going to get better at it, efficient at it. And yes, you're going to beat your times and things like that.
Yeah.
But the response that you'll get, because you adapt to it and your body becomes an engine and machine, you're missing out on all the other benefits of like other styles of training.
Yeah.
The EPOC, the weight training, things like that. So going down just one avenue and saying, right, only doing full body training splits and that's it, there's a lifespan of that as well. So when we do things, we work on I think of it, let's look at it more macro based. And what I mean by that is maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, we change the split entirely. So when it's like, we might say, right, we're doing a 3 body full routine. I think that was about 6 weeks ago. We were doing that for about 6 weeks. And then we've moved into our approach, which is more like two muscles.
Agonists.
Antagonist, agonist, which is the opposing muscles, chest and back, legs and shoulders, and then arms and what we're doing?
Biceps, triceps, abs, aren't we doing the other day?
And so we're working on that. So it's different muscle group splits. The next time, after 6, and what we do is with them, we choose different stimulations every 2 weeks over a 6-week period on that muscle split. We're working in different rep ranges, different ways to go, so that we're building the compound exercises, the biggest bang for your buck ones, and changing the rep ranges on them, while also changing the stimulus of doing something more sarcoplasmic. That means muscle swelling. So I know right now we're about to move into DAS on the next one. Right? And the DAS is where we're doing 18 repetitions. So we're holding the negative, let's say on a bench press, we're down, hold for 2 seconds there. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. That's 6 reps like that. Then I hold at the top for like just off top for 2 seconds, and we do 6 like that with a 2 second hold. Then it's 6 at the end where we're doing that. So it's like a sarcoplasmic effect, and there's different ways to stimulate that. There's multiple ranges, but as you can see, we're going through all the rep ranges where we're taking more of an endurance for the compound, then bring it into like a functional hypertrophy, then maybe even relative strength on like a 5 repetition max and finishing on it. Then that's when we'll change your muscle stimulus completely and go to a completely different split where it might be push, pull and legs.
Lower.
And the reason for that is because everything's got its own benefits and advantages.
And
there's
everything
an intensity difference, there's a volume difference, there's an accumulation difference, a frequency difference. All of them are important. And so if we don't go through all of them, we're missing out on some of them.
And recognizing that everything has a lifespan.
Yes.
I think stimulus.
So revolving them around every 6 weeks in the ones that I've just said, all of a sudden we've got like 24 weeks of different varying stimuluses,
training modalities
in terms of macros, so that we've got like, we're built, all of a sudden you can see a philosophy that we've got here at Model Health where it's like 52 weeks of a year broken down into 4 segments of 12 weeks, and then 2 segments within that 12 weeks
micro
of 6
cycles.
weeks. So we're creating microcycles of 2 weeks in each 6-week energy system. And then people all of a sudden start to understand, Jesus, there's an actual method of the madness.
We're not crazy.
You know, it's like, and we look at it in the macro sense and then break it down, and then that's where people can maybe appreciate the level that we go to, because I think we spend hours in here methodically thinking about the systems and thinking, well, we've just come off the back of this system. This is how we've broken down this 6 weeks. We're moving into this one, but it needs to flow like sort of seamless into the next way. We've just come off the back of some low rep work on that, and we've been doing it for 6 weeks. So we now need a different kind of compound exercise for the key lifting. Let's say a deadlift. Because there's different ways of doing a deadlift. There's you've got glute bridges, you've got deadlift, you've got single leg deadlift, you've got sumo deadlift. Like there's so many different ways to do a particular exercise, close grip, wide grip. You've got to change it up.
I'm not going to go into this hugely, but there is also something called the law of supercompensation. And basically what that means is if I'm training a particular rep range this week, my body doesn't respond and make the gains to it now. It does it either when I change up the training program or have a break. That's when the nervous system, the body, realizes what I've done last week, and if I'd made any gains, if I push myself, then it will adapt to that and that's when the adaptation occurs. That's why it's also important to change program frequently.
Yeah, and I love doing this. So like when we sit down every 6 weeks to map out the next 6 weeks, and that way I really enjoy that part of it, because we are like trying to bring. I mean, it's funny how we still, 15 plus years down the line, still able to create effective programs that people like have never done before. Because we've built that much of a repertoire, and we'll go to that much level of like learning and studying.
We also have to give credit to some of the people we've worked with. We've studied with some brilliant people: Eric Serrano, Phil Richards, Charles Pollock-Wynn, Mark Roper, Owen Lacey. We've learned literally from the best. They're
my in-person ones, but
I always remember
when we just go on, when we do things like our studying and research from other,
John
Barbell and stuff.
John
like
Meadows,
that.
gutted that I never got to intern with him before he sadly passed away. I love his stuff. Been reading a lot about his stuff.
Get one with him.
Lucky.
I was in an Owen Lacey one.
Lucky.
But yeah, just things like that. It gives you this new feel, because then this is the other thing about it as well. We don't just create the workouts; we go through them ourselves.
I know we've got to do the leg one today. Got to do the little body one, and it looks
don't
rank.
Tell them that, because they'll expect it now.
It looks rank.
But the thing is, this is the thing. We actually take this so seriously that we do the workouts before they get to it, because when we write it down on paper, and we do it like partnership program, because that's how we tend to methodically do all our systems, maybe a 1 in 3 sometimes. But the reality is, we go in and do it, and I'm like, that doesn't.
I think also that goes back to us trying to create the best possible experience here for the client. We didn't know at our session we have with them, how long is it going to take me to explain this?
This is going to demo it. Too long.
Clients are generally slower than us because they might not know the technique, or they've got to find the weights. They don't know the weights.
You're out the way. I'm already taking up your seat. I'm warming it up.
But we want to make sure that flows and that experience is there, which is one of the main reasons we test it. I want to know how it feels. I want to know what point of the workout did I think, oh God, I needed Kev to get me through that set there. The client's going to need me at this point. I need to be around.
Yeah. Do you know also why I love that part where we test it first? Because I really buy into it, because like I really like that one. And I love that, because then I put that into my session. And I'm putting that energy in because I know how it felt. So I'm wanting them to feel that same thing. So I'm like, look, at this point you need to be pushing by this third set. This is the key point. This is where you need to be well inflated using them first reps, because you know what, let's say we've got 4 sets of a particular exercise. We are using them first couple of sets to build up to saying, right, set 3 is where I need you to be inflated enough to be getting the response that I need. And you start to have to think of like, this is the point where you should be almost
starting to peak.
You've got a 2 R&R, RIR, so rest in reserves, but ready for that last set. If it's a TPF, for example, training past failure, like these things I can really detail and talk about because I've just gone through it. I've gone through that exact experience, saying, look, this is what I need, because and I can talk about it so explicitly because I've just gone through it.
So you're genuine, and then the clients buy in.
Rather than just coming in one day and going, oh, we'll do
4 sets of 10 on the bench, let's go.
And I'll go in and I said, like, that's not something that we've done. And I'm very proud of that level of service that we give. And I don't think people really understand how much.
It's one of my biggest irritants within the fitness industry. You see so many like online coaches, and you can just see it's fake. In my eyes, the product they're selling, they haven't. It's not tried and tested. They haven't been in the trenches. They haven't done it. Even when we're doing our online coaching part of it, and we're doing the online coaching side, we bring that workout that we've done in here into that world because we know it works, but then we have to modify it based upon the fact they haven't got our gym. They haven't got the ability to go and do, let's say, a giant set format of 4 different exercises, because that's what we've styled and programmed. So we would have to change that based upon the fact that it might have to be straight set work, but it's still the same principles that we're bringing, so that they're going along the journey at the same time as these guys, but it still has to be a different workout system. Whereas, I see it all the time, and it's like, they're plug and play in this same workout system to every single one. It's just boom, boom, it's the same thing. I've had people come to us before and they'll be like, oh, that's what I was given. I'm like, wow, okay. I'd be like, how long are you in? How long have you been in? Oh, I've been working for about 6 months. I'm like, that's a GPP program. And how much?
That's a general preparedness program that you would start a client off. And I was like, so then when they come to me and I'll look back at the last set of workouts and I'm like, yeah, it's literally like it's just a templated thing, and there's no method, there's no leading from one system to the next at all, and it just like, but because people aren't clued up with that, they don't understand it.
They can't recognize it. They can't
recognize it. They're just like, oh, I'm getting a new workout system every 2 weeks, and it's just the same
regurgitation.
But also the same energy system thing as well. They're just staying in the same rep ranges, the same systems, and there's no like week 1 to 3 is this, week 4 to 6 is this, because we're trying to transfer. Because this is another thing people don't understand. Training transfers into the next system. What you're doing right now isn't going to benefit until you go into the next one.
Yeah,
I don't think people understand that enough. And again, this is something that I learned very on in thinking. It's like, look, if you're moving from, let's say, myofibril style training to sarcoplasmic style training, where you're literally trying to create the satellite signals and trying to increase the density and population of them signals, to all of a sudden swelling them and tearing them and splitting them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And by doing this part, it makes the next stage, because you've built more of them, it makes this stage work to the way it is, and then going back, because we've created the swelling and the new muscle tissue and the density and then we're transferring to this one, and people just don't get that.
Yeah.
And that's where the beauty of like what training is, and that's why it's a methodical sense.
That's why it's still interesting. Yeah. So many years later.
Last question. Kev, how do you get rid of belly fat?
Why have you given me the 2 best questions? Look, people need to understand it's really hard. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's hard to spot reduce body fat from a particular area. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes. However, with regards to the question you just asked me, there are things you can do for certain areas which will improve things, let's say. So, for example, you have to think of it as an overall approach, right? Like, the first thing I'd say is training intensity is paramount. What you're doing outside of the gym is paramount. If you feel you're storing stomach fat, right, you need to look at your lifestyle, because generally it's an inflammation response, isn't it? Yeah. So what are you doing within your lifestyle in terms of processed foods, sleep, stress, water intake, all of these sorts of things? With the stomach fat in particular, you're going to store subcutaneous fat. So that's what we will measure in assessments, is the fat we pull away from the skin. Yeah. But you'll also, in the stomach, it's visceral fat. So if your stomach is really firm and dense and hard, you're storing a lot of visceral fat. You need to make improvements to your lifestyle to help reduce that, right? And then suddenly it really does shrink. You can take inches away. But you have to look at it as a whole. It's a lifestyle approach. You can't just take a magic pill, or there's no magic bullet to say, yep, do that and that will go. It just doesn't, it's not that easy, unfortunately. You have to be consistent, and consistency is the key.
Yeah, I'm just going to make it very simple for anyone that's out there and wanting it big. It's basically their eyes have opened up going, oh, they're answering the question that I want.
Yeah.
Like, don't even think like that. No. You can't behave like that. You can't have that thought process. I'm in quite a low body fat now, yet my lower part, just from the belly button down, right, it's still got that protruding part of it, because it's the last place that it's going to come off
the
from.
Body's stubborn. Everyone works differently.
It's a stubboron area that you just can't get away from. And some people, yes, it protrudes more, but you've got, as Kev pointed out, you've got excessive visceral fat and your subcutaneous fat. Now, I've had clients who can be lowering their waist, and it's simply for the fact that visceral fat is like, it's readily available energy that can be utilized. So the good thing is, if you treat your body half decent, and this goes for males and females, it can come down quickest. In fact, I find the most stubborn parts for females in particular is the lower body. So it's a lot more difficult. It's a toxic load that, we've got to be able to filter out toxins effectively. So we can go into all these details of like, what's the toxic load like, what's the effectiveness and the amount of micronutrients, because toxic load is improved, it can be improved in terms of how it goes by vitamins and minerals and the amino acids and the thingy. And if you're lacking all of that, you're making it even more difficult. But there's no point going down that route of spot specific reduction. If you've got body fat in your belly, you've got body fat in other places as well. Yeah. Right.
So you need to improve your general approach to improving your health. Yeah. Because whether you want to drop body fat on the lower body, the stomach, the chest, the triceps, like Kev says, you're storing body fat there for a reason. It's because your lifestyle isn't where it needs to be, right? Through multiple factors, diet, sleep, stress. You need to correct that. And then, yes, there's certain supplements that can improve minerals and vitamins and vital nutrients you need that you think will help reduce fat in that area, but really it's just improving the body's processes to do what it needs to do, isn't it? You know, I'm talking about vitamin C, magnesium, things like that. The body needs all of that anyway. It just sometimes certain areas you see, oh yeah, it's really benefiting it, but it's just improving your health, guys. Healthy on the inside, healthy on the outside.
Yeah, from my perspective, if you try and think like that, you're going to have a really mental, you're going to have a poor mentality towards it. And I'll tell you why. Every single meal that you eat can influence how your body looks afterwards. Yeah. Very simple. A poor night's sleep can influence how your body looks afterwards. Having alcohol can impact how your body looks afterwards. Your hormones in terms of your cycle in the month as a female can influence how your body looks for that particular week, for example. And your storing of water and intracellular fluids, just by the fact of, like, let's say you drop your carbohydrates to all of a sudden have a big weekend with high carbohydrates, you're going to be trying to view, that's all you're ever going to do. Oh, it's higher today. Oh, it's lower today. Oh, I'm feeling a bit leaner. Oh, I'm feeling a bit fatter. Yeah. Like, that's the mindset you're going to have.
And then you just move on to the next part you're unhappy with. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it just creates a vicious cycle of an unhealthy mindset.
So the only way is to think of overall, are we making improvements? Are we coming down? Because the energy deficit, where it pulls it from the body fat as an overall element, by being in a consistent energy deficit over a long period of time and the body fat coming down, you will eventually see the frame that you want. And yes, there will still be more stubborn parts than others. Like you'll have veins on your forearms, but you'll have a stubborn part in your belly. Deal with it. Like, as low as you can get yourself, while also being in a happy place. Because when I'm talking about general population here, I'm not here to talk about athletes and things like that, or people who are doing body competitions and stuff like that. Because yes, they can go, but the sacrifice that you're willing to do and take upon to get yourself to where you want to go is a big area that, I think we'll talk about this in the next podcast. And that is the sacrifice that you're willing to give as a general population person will have to dictate where you're going to take your body overall, because you can't expect to have a bodybuilder's physique without doing what a bodybuilder does. That is just the reality. Like, they sacrifice major parts and elements of their life, and they're willing to do that,
and they're happy with that.
And but at the end of the day, that's up to the individual. Yeah, and I would say I'm in quite a good place, and in terms of that, but I'm still sacrificing my Monday to Friday in a very specific way. But I am having my Saturday and Sunday. But that is something that I'm very happy with right now. But there'll be a point where I'll be like, well, I'm not willing to sacrifice as many calories as I am aggressively in the Monday to Friday anymore. And I want to take it up a little bit because that sacrifice has worn itself out. And I think people, they want the physique without doing what it's actually going to take. And unfortunately, this is one other thing. Genetics does play a major role. Yeah. Right? So there is an element of, like, for example, some people can put muscle on more effectively than others. Some people have got the genetic makeup to be shot putters. Other people haven't. Some people have got the genetic makeup to be sprinters. Other people haven't. That is something you can't get away from. So by looking at peers and looking and trying to attain something that maybe is physically impossible isn't a great way to go. What is good is seeing where you are now, seeing the sacrifices that you're making to achieve what you want, and seeing, like, what the reality is of whether you can get where you can take that is in terms of the results. Because that's how we work with our clients. I'm realistic to them. I'll tell them, I want to be 6-pack abs, and it'll be like, well, you're 30% body fat right now, so I think we just need to get to 20% maybe.
And then we'll talk again.
And see what that is, and see what the sacrifices that you've had to do to achieve things are.
How hard is that going to be?
How hard have I pushed in that regard? But that's where, again, the long-term journey can sometimes be that we'll get there fastest because we don't have to play the aggressive game all the way down to it. We actually can play between them and take it easy on the whole long-term effect of it. Playing the aggressive sometimes, but also playing the thriving, the maintenance side of things. Right, I think that's that for today, guys. We've gone through a lot of topics. I hope you find them useful. I hope you take away some good points. Remember, questions and answer. We're happy to answer any questions that people have got. You can answer them in the comments, whatever channel this may be on, or get in touch with us via modelhealth.co.uk. But in the meantime, guys, I want you to have a good summer. Enjoy yourselves and get what you want from your fitness.
See you soon, guys.
Bye.
Guys, if you like that video, please check out more content from us on our YouTube channel. Now, so you don't miss anything, remember to like, subscribe, and click that bell so you receive all the notifications.